So, hello everyone. I hope you are already live. And as you can see over your screen, we are going to discuss from CHAUCER to SPENSER, and also we're going to talk about early Tudor period from 1400 to 1550. Very important this thing, because most of the time you are going to get questions on, especially on the meter and the rhyme scheme, and everything was starting from here. So today we are going to discuss all the scheme, and then also we're going to discuss about Thomas More and Bible. Very important that you get one question sometime, but for the past 5 years you just got like three questions from Bible and two questions from Skeleton, and couple of questions from Thomas More. And most of the time, every single time almost, you get question from rhyme scheme. So in that perspective, this session on chapter 5 is quite important for you, and we'll start from that, and also we'll talk about a little bit dynasty of the kings, and how this Tudor period started, and how it takes shape to Elizabethan era. As you know, Tudor period is from 14 40, somewhere around that, to Elizabethan era. So all through that we are going to only cover early Tudor. Next session will be on Elizabeth era. Very important, where you find Shakespeare, Spenser, and all other dramatists at that time, and especially poetry like you have done there, you know, and other. Anyway, we're gonna talk about today, and we'll start with a rhyme scheme. And let me go recap what we have studied so far. We had a lecture on Greco-Roman period, and as you know, what they ask mostly about Aeschylus, Menander, Aristophanes, and Sophocles, Plato, Aristotle, that we have already discussed. And if you haven't watched it, you should go back and watch the first chapter. Then we had what? We had another class in Old English period, where we talked about Beowulf and other rhyming scheme like alliteration, kenning, caesura. These question, from these section you get mostly question. And also we talked about in third chapter about Middle English period, where we talked about important poets at that time, and we also talked about some events and some rhyme scheme also at that time. And then we had the age of Chaucer, which is like chapter 4. We discussed about Chaucer, whatever the question they asked previously on Chaucer, and the tale and prologue, right? And we have also created codes to remember everything from Greco to our Chaucer. And this time also we're gonna create some codes that will help you to remember everything in order. Very important, because as you know, from beginning from Greco-Roman usually, and you get till Chaucer some kind of chronological order. And for that we have created a code, and I have shared in the Telegram channel, and also in your notes, and also we have discussed in our previous lecture. So today, from Chaucer to Spenser, we are going to start. So I hope you all are ready, and keep a note, because you need to write down the codes, and also you know important facts, and also what kind of question they have asked, and which particular poet or particular section is important, especially about a rhyme. So these things you have to write down in your notes. So let's begin. First of all, we're going to discuss rhyme scheme. So if you haven't joined the Telegram channel, you should, click on the description box and join the channel. There you will get all the codes and all the notes and PYQs and everything, whatever we post, and also all the updates you're going to get from there itself. And also, if you wanna, study in depth, because we are not posting, right now we are posting, in a series, but later the first it will be posted there in your course, and in between section we'll post not all of it, because this is a course and this is a promotional part that we are doing, especially, in the beginning. And you should join the course as soon as possible, because you don't want to miss everything. And you know how we study, we take, always like to the points question, section, and whatever the points are there in your exams perspective. So in that case, this particular course is very important, and one of the, important feature of this course is the PYQ. We are, you know making notes from the PYQ questions, whatever they have asked in the past. So for that, you have to join the course to solve the PYQ questions, and also each questions have their own explanation. So you don't have to go and search, wonder in your Google or web browser. You're going to be everything from that and to the point. And believe me, you're not going to get questions from other section. Whatever we make notes, you're going to get from that, not, from somewhere else. So let's begin. So I was talking about rhyme scheme. So at that time, very important, development happened in meter and the metrical feet and the different kind of scheme. So especially at that time, what kind of rhyme scheme was famous? We had a rhyme royal, or this is also called Chaucerian. That is also important. And we had also Skeltonic at that time. Skeltonic, it's similar to Chaucer, but little bit different in, you know syllable, and why it is, we'll also talk about that. Then also in heroic couplet. Remember, you're going to get questions only from that section. So heroic couplets we have, and then we had another, like, we have pentameter development, different kind of, starting like Spencer and all, but we are going to cover in this section. And we have also like tetrameter development, little bit improvement. And then we had rhyme royal, skeleton, heroic, and we had pentameter, tetrameter, and other like uh, prosody we had. And then we had assonance. We already talked about these things, but we're gonna talk. And another important, literary device started using because of the development of the Bible is allegory. And we're gonna talk about miracle, mystery, and we're gonna talk about morality. So all these things are coming in this particular lecture. So let's start with the metrical feet. So before you jump into this rhyme scheme, you should know the metrical feet. We already had a brief discussion on the metrical feet, and here we're gonna just, revive that. So first is iamb. Iamb means is what? First is unstressed, right? And second is stressed. So this is our code. Like an example is like both. Trochee, completely opposite of this. Opposite of this is what? Code is simple for this one. Here actually we are going to just wait a minute. A little bit code is wrong. And So stressed is, we are dividing, representing, this is our stress, unstressed sign. So remember these two signs. So EAMB starts with what? It is first is unstressed and this stressed. Completely opposite, like first is stress, sorry, here stressed and unstressed. Dactyl is what? A metrical food, three syllable. Remember that. The first is stressed and the following two are unstressed. Remember these codes, very important that you should know. And then we have completely opposite of ductile is anapest, which is what? Two is unstressed and one is stressed. Spondy is what? A metrical food consisting two syllable where both are stressed. Both are stressed. Okay. And then pyrrhic, again opposite, we can just two syllable where both are unstressed. And amphibrach, another amphibraric is what? A consisting of three syllable where the middle one is stressed and other is unstressed. So here the middle one is stressed, unstressed, and all are. The middle one is stressed and other are unstressed, right? So this is the code that you have to remember. And when this rhyme scheme is done, we're gonna talk about Alexandrian. Very important, because here what happened? Alexandrian means what? It is total 12 syllable and arranged in two halves. Like there is comma in between, like 6 comma 6 equals to 12 line. So I'll just give you some example also, each containing 6 syllable. So these two halves are separated by kasura or natural pause. It can be comma, and also without comma also is there, like end is represented in between, or little bit, pause while you read in between the sentence, that you don't see like there is a comma there, but there is, when you read it you feel it like there is something pause in between the sentence. So that's why this Alexandria has 12 and 6 6 it is divided by. I hope you'll understand. Mostly it was used in medieval French, Roman. So, some you here is not there. But when you talk about Spencer in Spencerian stanza, as you know, it is like B A B, right? This four. Then it starts again B, and then we have 3 3 set B B, then C, then we have again 1 2 3 4 5 6, again B 7, and then again C C. So this is the metrical feet that you can divide in this Spencerian, right? That we'll talk about. And then we have iambic pentameter. Iambic means what? As we know, unstressed, unstressed, and then stressed, right? Iambic pentameter means, penta means 5. So we have this group: stress 1 1. So how many we have right now? 1 2 3 4, and one more is, so this is your pentameter in iambic. So I hope you got the connection and also the formula for this. So like in a music, louder or stronger, again stressed and unstressed. So we have already discussed the iambic, pentamean, what, 5, right? And some example, let me tell you here. In Shakespearean, famous writers are like William Shakespeare, and also most of the poet use that pentameter. So here to remember, for you, unstressed, stressed, one set, right? Then we have two sets, then three, then four, and then five. So this is iambic pentameter, nothing else. And DK syllabic on the other hand is what? DK means what? DK syllabic is a poetic meter that has 10 syllable. So it could be iambic, DK syllabic, or it can be trochee DK syllabic. All these things can be added later through the, like, so if we talk about, DK syllabic which has 10 syllable, not like penta. Penta has 5, DK syllabic has 10 syllable in each line, right? And of course there is also here in some tradition like medieval French epic poem, the DK syllabic are also considered as heroic verse because it was often used in stories about heroes and their adventure. So these poems would typically have a break again, this time in 5 between, and is called Sashura, right? There will be comma and there will not be comma, but while you read it, you will feel like there is a pause in between after the fourth syllable to create a pause. So it's like this, I guess. Okay, so if you see, a line poetry from, poetry with exactly 10 syllable, it's written in DK syllabic meter. So understand this. Then we have octo. Octo means 8. Mostly it was used when we talked about 8, which means we have 8 syllable, right? Like it could be set of, stressed or unstressed or stressed or like iambic or trochee or dactyl, all these things it can come if it is talking about 8 syllabic, octosyllabics. Let me tell you one thing. It is similar to tetrameter. As you know, tetrameter has how many? 4, right? Was which has typically 4 beats, so it can be divided by 2 tetra, like 4 and 4. Could be pause or could not be, not specifically mentioned that there is a pause in between, right? So this is your octasyllabic, mostly used in French, Italian, Spanish and Portuguese. Then we have tetrameter. Again, I talked about 4 metrical line, very small poem usually. Example, you see, and the sheen of their spears was like stars on the sea. Lord Byron. Too stressed, too unstressed. This is too unstressed and followed by stressed. Right. So this is our tetrameter of comma. How many times? 4 times. Formula 4 times. So this kind of are there formula for this. Unstressed followed by stressed. You can see the example da da da, which is what? Stressed, and dumb is unstressed. Again 3 3 set, right? You can just see it. 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 4 time, 1 2 3 4. So I hope you understand what is tetrameter and anapestic. And when we talk about iambic tetrameter, stressed and unstressed, right? Sorry, first is what? Unstressed, and then we have stressed, this. So iambic tetrameter, so this is again 4 times, like da doom da doom da doom da doom, 4 times, because we are talking about tetra, and also we're talking about iamb, which has unstressed and stressed. Again same method is for trochaic, which is stressed and unstressed. Again dum da dum da dum da dum da, right? So we are talking about tetrameter and we are also including trochee. So again this same thing can follow in other meter also, so that you should remember. Then we have iamb. You can just take an example of Emily Dickinson, because I could not stop for death. And dactyl is more what? Dactyl is what? Two, actually two is stressed. Where is that? Yes. And one and two are stressed actually. You see, one is stressed and two unstressed. Okay, spondaic. So when you know all these things, you can just easily make the group. Right. So that's all here in the rhyme meter. Now we talk about rhyme royal, which is also known as Chaucerian, because Chaucer used it. Rhyme royal, remember it has how many lines? 7 lines. A, B, A, and then we have B. You can just make it for 4 set here. B, 2, 2. Right? A rhyming, B, B rhyming, and next is B, C, and then C. So basically, if you divide A, B, and then here B, C, C. So here 2 time is rhyming happening in the B and in the C. So this is your Chaucerian, and which has totally 10 beats. 10 beats like syllable. And syllable, and mostly it is showing about dardum, means stressed and unstressed. Stressed and unstressed. Do you know what does it mean? Stressed and unstressed is what? This is troche, right? And opposite of troche is what? Unstressed and stressed. That is your iamb. So that is all here, and we have now next is heroic couplet. Heroic couplet is what? From consisting two rhyme, because we are talking about couplet means two. It could be A, or B, anything. Basically, this is the formula, right? Mostly used in epic and narrative poetry. Each line in the couplet contain 10 syllable. Again, it could be, you know, iambic pentameter set, or you know, it could be like this or like this. Two sets. 10 syllable, total 10 syllable, followed by a stressed syllable iambic pentameter. So last one will be in iambic pentameter. And the heroic couplet first popularized by Chaucer, that's why we have mentioned, and then it moved to John Dryden and Alexander Pope, and of course during the Restoration age. Here are some example. You can see here in Geoffrey Chaucer, when that April with his, you know, sour suit, and the drought of March hath pierced to the root. So you see T, that is your rhyming couplet, heroic. Okay, and you should know not all of the Canterbury Tales is written in that heroic couplet, but in the opening line is the couplet. The others are usually rhyme royal with the 7 set, right? And then we have John Dryden, Absalom, and Achitophel. A man so various that he seemed to be not one but all mankind's epitome. Again, Alexander Pope, a very famous quote here: a little learning is a dangerous thing, drink deep or taste not the Pierian spring. Samuel Johnson, we have the vanity of human wishes, still raise for good the supplicating voice, but leave to heaven the measure and the choice. We have another Spenserian stanza. We'll actually discuss in detail in the next chapter, but here I'll just give you the brief example. Like, how's the set? As I told you, AB, AB, then we have BC, BC. And remember, there is two rhyme here also, here and here. And these two is in Alexandria. As I told you, there should be a break in the sentence, like in these two. The last one, that is very important. The final line, you see, Alexandrian. You should remember, because anybody can make the code, these things, right? Anyone can remember, but they would mention that, they would miss it, that there is C which is completely different from all these, because it is Alexandrine. Alexandrine, as we told you, it has how many? 12, right? 6, and then there is a pause, caesura, or any natural pause that you will read it. So very important that you should pay attention. So some example I'll show you. There is C, A, B, A, then B. This is 2 2, as you can see, this 2, and then this 2. Then again start with BC and BC, and the last one is your Alexandria, Alexandrine, right? And that is what here you see, end, or it could be comma, or there would no be no comma, but you will, when you read it here, fierce wars and fruitful love shall moralize my song. Got it? So first 8 line you can just see narrative and tone using iambic pentameter, and the ninth line, which provides a sense of closer and a resolution to the stanza with longer iambic hexameter. And hexameter, as I told you, Alexandrine 6 and 6. The rhyme scheme ties the stanza together with a pattern that combines continuity and variety, making the stanza both harmonious and complex. Then we have another important device at that time is allegory. And why? Because of the development of Bible. So they started doing all the theaters, some drama, some mosque, and all these things, and then it started that mystery miracle plays, right? And they based on what this allegory mostly. So like you see in animal form, so that's what you have to understand. Allegory is what, where characters, events, setting symbolize something deeper, often relating to moral, it could be religious or political idea, right? Like you see in Animal Farm by George Orwell. So this farm where animals are overthrown, humans symbolize what? A Russian revolution. So this is your allegory, you know and the rise of Soviet communism. Allegory of Cave by Plato. Cave is also, represent what? Human ignorance and the journey toward enlightenment. Then we have Chronicles of Narnia. A lion sacrifices himself and resurrects. That is what? It shows Jesus Christ crucifixion and what? Resurrection, right? Then Pilgrim's Progress, very important that it uses the allegory of what? When there was this city of destruction to the celestial city, that symbolize what? A Christian path. Then Lord of the Flies, boys stranded on an island descended into chaos, what? Symbolizing the conflict between civilization and slavery. Got it? So in that way you will understand what is this allegory. And then we have prosody. Very recent this question they have asked about the prosody. And prosody is what? There was option, like it is about the language, or it is about some narrative, or it is about tone or meter and all, right? So remember that prosody is like the music of our speech. It's not just about the words we say, but how we say them. Imagine when someone reads a story out loud. It's not just about the words, that matter, but also the way they say them. That's what prosody is all about. So when we solve the question, I'll just explain about that prosody little bit more, right? An example from English literature, if you just ask about what is prosody, you should, know that there is intonation, which is like all about, how you're saying your, you know, tone of your voice or voice of the sound, your voice sound different than when you say, right? And there is stress. So prosody talks about intonation, tone, stress, and rhythm. Very important that this kind of question comes. So stress is what, when you say a word, or part of the word louder or with more emphasis, like I really want to go. So that really gives you some effect in the sentence. So that is your what, prosody. Then the rhythm. Rhythm is like the beat in the music, as we know. In a poem, it's how the words flow together. For example, there is another a poem here. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam and I am. So this is kind of tone is rhythm is there. So that is also comes in your prosody. So when the question comes, you should know that prosody equals to a rhythm, tone, stress, right, and of course about some meter. Yeah, these things you should know. And how prosody makes the stories and poems fun, as you know, there will be some affect in that. There will be like happy, sad, and scary, right? Assonance, another question on assonance also. It is also sound pattern you can find in a poem and a story. It's when the same vowel sounds repeats in the middle of the words that are close together. It's like when you hear the same sound again and again, which makes our, so assonance, when we talk about assonance, you should know there we are talking about vowel, right? For example, tiger, tiger, burning bright. So this your tiger is what, assonance, right? So this how you can just understand what is assonance. Then we have then we'll just start with our introduction. So today what we have so far studied all the metrical form, rhyming scheme, and some of the literary figure, literary devices that it was used at that time. And the question only comes from this part, not from others. Little bit they ask here and there about Skelton, and also about Thomas More. They used to ask a lot of about Thomas More, before, but these days they are just asking what, like who translated first in the English, and then you know who was the companion of that, and then they have asked the order, mostly chronology order from the past 5 years. So in that case you just have to, you don't have to go and read all the things about the utopia, just important points, and that'll be enough for you in the exam, right? And let's talk about introduction of this particular period. So we are now jumping into the content of the age. Already we have discussed the rhyme and other stuff, right? So let's start. So as you can see over your screen, we are going to have introduction from Chaucer to Spenser, or Tudor period, 1400 to 1550. So the transition period from Middle Ages to Renaissance, obviously. And then English literature involves what? Significantly not, you just have to have idea that what we are talking about, not to actually, that is just the build up of your mind for a great things to come, right? An influence of classical text, mostly about Bible and other stuff, period marked by social, political, and religious change. Of course, there was Protestant, there was Catholic Church, all this started, right? Development of early modern English language through the Chaucer and then the later writer. And rise of the Tudor dynasty, that as we know, it started that national identity, feeling in the citizen, and a literary focus shift from medieval to humanistic theme. Printing press invention, as we know, 1476 and 77, revolutionized what literature. Emergent new poetic forms and a style that we already discussed, right? And kings of England during that period. Very important. Henry IV, Henry V, and Henry VI. Till where? 1400 to 1461. All these Henry thing came, right? Or 71. Edward, then it started with Edward. Two said this is Henry. 1, 2, 3, you can just remember through that. Then we have Edward. How many Edward? 2 Edward. This is how many Edward? 3 Edwards. Or 2 Edwards, what? Starting with 4 and 5. Their reign was 1461 to, it goes to 1485 till 85. And then Richard, one Richard we have. I'm talking about groups, in the groups, right? So Richard III, we can just make it, there is one Richard in between. And again, the age is 83 to 85. Last plant killed at Bosworth. So that's what you have to remember. And then there is also another Mary the First, which is known as, who is known as Bloody Mary. Okay, so that was all about the, what you have to remember, that Tudor dynasty started with this thing, Henry IV, and ended with Elizabethan. That you have to remember. So major timeline of the Tudor period is what happened for your, to significant to English literature. Remember, Tudor period. Henry VII becomes king, start the Tudor dynasty. So here actually it starts. Then Henry VIII ascend the throne. He was actually patron of Renaissance, arts and humanism in England. Then 1570, beginning of the Protestant Reformation from the Catholic Church. And then we had 1534 Act of Supremacy passed by Henry VIII, establishment of church, religious theme. Elizabeth I became the queen when 1558, and as you know, it was the golden age for English literature. Then birth of William Shakespeare, as we know. Then Mary, Queen of Scots, is executed, influence on English and Scottish literature. Defeat of the Spanish Armada. Most of the work are based on that because it had, it has created, pride, national pride in the common people. And then Edmund Spenser, Fairy Queen was published, and death of Elizabeth I, 1603. So that's all your Tudor period, which is very important. And then now we'll talk about poetry. So remember, not, they don't ask many things from this period about poetry. Very important in that age. So you should know there were also poets. At that time there was not significant development in poetry, or there were no kind of recognized poets at that time. So you should know that there were poetry and they were only Scottish at that time. So remember that there was James First. What you have written, the king. You're not going to get a lot of question, but you should know that who wrote what. And then Sir David Lindsay, not much of the question. There was one question on the order, chronology order. So that you have to remember. Sir David Lindsay. So basically what you have to remember, that there were shortest poet also at that time. So in that case, so in that way you will know that there was, something happening in the poetry. And there was a very recent question on Robert Henry also. So it was about three state question. So because they have asked about Henrician, that doesn't mean they're not gonna ask again. So we have to be a little bit, you know, one step ahead of them. So we should know what is three state. It's a Scottish play, both political and religious. Satirize what? It satirize what? Corruption in the government, church, and society. Okay, so William Dunbar, they didn't ask any question from the 5 to 6 years. So what you have to remember, that William Dunbar was, uh, you know, one poet, and who, and what is important, the dance of the seven deadly sin. And also you should have a little bit idea about the golden touch, the Thrishil and the Royce, and whatever. So what you have to know in this Dunbar, the dance of the seven deadly sins. Then we have Gawain Douglas also. Important thing that you have to know, that he has written the Palace of Honor, the Palace of Honor, and the King Heart. Both work is little bit important, but they didn't ask from the past 5 years, so you can just accordingly, make your mind based on this. Anyway, very important, John Skelton. They have been asking question based on that. And why? There was one question about the early Tudor poet. So there was option like Chaucer, Gower, and we have other, and also there was option John Skelton. So the question was what? Who belongs to the early Tudor period at that time? So John Skelton in that case is important because he's a early Tudor poet. And why he's important? Because he is the tutor of the Prince Henry, later Henry VIII. That's all you have to know about Skelton and why Skelton important. And there was another question about Skeltonic verse. Actually, it's similar to Chaucerian, but little bit different. It is there in the little bit in the sentence, like for through my he also said about his verse. That's why we have they have actually classified that verse into Skeltonic verse. For thou my rhyme be ragged, tatter and jagged, rudely rind beaten, rusty in mutin eaten, it hath it in some path. So remember that thing, right? And some important work that you have to remember, why come you not to court? Very important, the turning of Eleanor running. I don't know how to say, but anyway, this one is important because they have started asking about Skelton, so you should know this work. Why come you not to the court? Then Dies on Edward IV and the Boys of Court. Magnificence, important morality play that you should know by Skelton. Right. Then litigate. Did they ask question about litigate? Yes, they ask about question, but it was again in what? In chronology order. And why he is important? Because he was a friend of Chaucer. Major work, The Falls of Princes, The Temple of Glass. Remember that? And The Story of Thebes, London. Another is London Lickpenny. Thomas Ackloy, not much of the question they have asked, but you should know that there were other poets at that time. And we have Stephen Hawes. He was a court poet, remember, for Pastime of Pleasure. Alexander Barclay, another major poet, and he was actually priest, possibly Scottish or English by birth. Major work, The Ships of Fools. And so in this thing, what you have to know about, a little bit about Henrician in that section. In poetry, you have to know about Henrician because they have asked question about it. about the three states, remember? Then you have to know about skeleton in that age, skeleton. And then we had what? Another question was about litigate, again order, get. And what else do we have in that you can remember? That's all in the poetry section. Then we have prose writer. So in the prose you have to remember who. uh, we have Caxton and Thomas More. These two person. We already discussed about Caxton in our previous session, and we'll also have a brief discussion again on Caxton and Moore. We're gonna have the discussion and whatever the question they have asked based on that, right? So another was here Reginald Peak. Did they ask question about it? They did not ask it, but you have to know that he was attacked Lollards, convicted of heresy, and recanted publicly. That's why this particular character is important, right? And a couple of works that you can see over your screen. One is The Repressure of Overmuch Blaming the Clergy, the Book of Faith, right? John Fisher, you should know that there is another prose writer at that time. Remember the age, 1459, 1535. You don't have to remember the order of this thing because they are not going to ask, right? He wrote tracts, sermons, treatise on the psalm. Hugh Latimer, again another important uh, prose writer. He was chaplain to Henry VIII and burned at the stake during Queen Mary's reign. Important is our William Caxton. As we know, he was born in 1422. Remember we made one order, right? What? G L C, then LCM, and then social media, right? This code we have remembered, and through that you will able to answer whole, Chaucer's order, chronology order. G stands for Gower, so Gower was the first one. L stands for what? Langland. C stands for Chaucer. M stands for Mallory. And S stands for um, social media. That is, I think, this is Moore and this is a skeleton. Right, that you have to know the order. So I hope you know the complete order now. Let me tell you one more about William Caxton. We have already have great discussion on Caxton itself, why he was important. Remember that he brought his first printed book is 1477. And what was the book? The Dictates and Sovereign of the Philosopher. Very important that you should know the first printed book in English, right? In English literature or in England. Very important. Revised mostly publication, improved clarity, printed older texts like Chaucer's, Mallory's, notable translation, and he has translated and published in his printing press the recall of the histories of the Troy. Printed the game and plays of chess also, right? So these things you should know. He also printed Morte Arthur, remember, very important, somewhere around in 81. Arthur, right? So that you have to know. So let's move to Thomas More, another important Thomas More. Remember the chronology 1478 1535. So remember what the chronology order that we discussed. What was it? Um, GLC MSM, right? That was our code. So Thomas More, as we know, very important all the points here. He was humanist, statesman, Chancellor of England. Born in London, he was a son of judge. Beheaded for refusing Henry's eighth church authority. So he was kind of beheaded. Recognized as a saint by Roman Catholic. Avid, kind of reader, he read all the holy scripture, church fathers, explored all literary genre with literary aspiration, educated in London and attached to archbishop's household, and became a lawyer with influence from Erasmus. Very important, influenced by these two, Colet and Erasmus. Served in Parliament and engaged in state service. Imprisoned in 1534 for advanced political views, and eventually he was beheaded in 1535 for his religious conviction. Wrote notable Latin works, An Elegance and Wit, and also he wrote Utopia, very important, kind of imaginary ideal state description. Remember, they used to ask a lot of question about utopia before from the inside, but the trend is gone. They're asking about the chronology order, and also, in which the date of utopia, and they're also asking some of the small characters that they are there, and also they're asking about the English translation. So remember, it was Ralph Robinson translated the Latin original into English, right? And then later, another was Gilbert Burnett also translated Utopia in 1684. Right, and English prose work include the life of John Pickers, who wrote the histories of Richard III, appointed to revise Anglo-Flemish commercial treaty, not Utopia published, and remember the date, 1516. So 1516, right? 1516. Utopia means, as we know, no place in Greek, and book contrasts region with Christian Europe's disorder. And very important that all the communist state governed by reason. So everything was at that time governed by reason. So that was their political agenda in Utopia. Important character Raphael Hithlode supports what communism as a cure. Utopia became the ancestor of utopian romance. So simple, the plots are also there for your reference, that there is this guy Hithlode. He was a traveler, discusses his journey to More, Hana. And Hethlode describes an ideal society called Utopia. Utopia is an island nation with a unique social system. The island is divided into 54 cities, and all are governed by reason. And Utopia lived communally with no private property, and citizens share resources equally, ensuring no lacks. Agriculture, remember, was the primary resource, and with everyone contributing into it. And then works are limited, providing leisure and intellectual pursuit. Education is the state controlled, religious pluralism, very important, and laws are simple, no need for lawyer, nobody needed lawyer in Utopia, and they value peace. Marriage, another important word is euthanasia is permitted for those suffering incurably. Right, and the book ends with what? More questioning whether utopia could exist. Right. Thomas More again, as you know, why he is famous, what was his crime, why he was executed on July 6th, 1535, refusing to acknowledge King Henry's VIII as supreme head of the church. That was actually the problem. And Moore's first commitment to his Catholic faith and his opposition to the king's divorce from Catherine of Aragon led to his indictment. So during his trial, More famously declared that he was the king's good servant, but God's first. Despite his, eloquent defense, he was sentenced to death and beheaded. Becoming a martyr for his belief, his execution is remembered as a powerful testament to the courage of standing by one's conviction. So remember all these things that we have mentioned. And next is the development of Bible. Very important that you should know the code also. So I have created a code for you to remember all this. Mr. White is cooking. But you should remember the date also. Wycliffe Bible 1384, William Tyndale's 1526, and Bible is 1535. Coverdale's, and we have eventually King James Bible 1611. So Mr. White is cooking means what? White, this represent what? Wycliffe, and T represent Tyndale, and Co represent Coverdale Bible, and Kings represent King James. Cooking, right? So all these things are, it's easy to remember this. So Matthew is the great and genuine bishop. Another. So remember, through Coverdale there is a gap of almost 80 years, right? Almost 80 years gap. So there were also other translation of Bible. And who else were there? Matthew is the great genuine bishop. So Matthew's Bible came, then is the great, the great Bible came, then, and genuine means Geneva Bible, and the bishop is Bishop's Bible. So in between, remember, so through Coverdale, in between James, there is other Bibles that you have to know. Other Bibles. So basically, for most important are these, right? So that you have to know. You only have to remember the date, nothing else. Wycliffe's Bible, remember 1384, 1388. And again, Tyndale is there, Bible 1526. And Miles Coverdale's Bible 1535. Then Matthew's Bible, all these dates you have to remember. So as I made a code for you, you can remember all these things. Remember, Mr. White is cooking for you, and Matthew is the great and genuine, bishop. That you have to remember. So in these two codes, you know the Bible, right? Only in exam point of view. So the origin of English drama. So at that time there was mystery, miracle, and morality. This is next step. So mystery, the biggest one is who? The God, right? Miracle is what? We are starting with the biblical themes like stock characters, plots. So God. Then after that is the messenger is, uh, God is in the supreme, right? Then little bit if you go down, there is saints. So this is your code, and the lower is common man. No, moral. You take the character and about the moral. Just wait a minute, I'll just delete this thing. Got it. So morality, they'll just take an example of any good or bad deeds and all these things, and they make a play like every man is there. So one figure, mostly allegorical, and the last is interlude. Interlude is what? For me and you, like common person. So remember the order. It goes down from mystery, miracle, morality, and interlude. Remember the code. supreme is God, then lesser is saints, then lesser is one figure, and the least is common patient. That is your interlude. So I hope you understand this thing, mystery miracle order, and how it is about. So let me tell you the examples now. Origin, as we know, it started with Latin drama, and degraded by the 5th century. All these things happened. What is mostly important that it started because Bible was translated, completely translated. There were different kind of version. So to support this and to promote this thing, we have started the drama at that time, theater at that time. So it was based on the church. That was the mystery focused on biblical theme like nativity, stock characters, and the plot is featured there. Priests plays near churches center around crucifixion, resurrection, and events. Themes like fall, Noah, Lazarus, all these things, right? And the miracle play, on the other hand, depicts the saints' life and miracle, who are like character closer to human experience, more urbane, shifted focus from biblical to saints stories like Saint Maria. All these stuff is there, right? And next is morality, little bit lesser because it is about allegorical character like vices, virtue, right? Justice, Mary, good deal, bad deal, devil, evil, knowledge, all this stuff, right? Every very important question that there was, every man ends with every man's death and salvation, and with whom, who accompanied it, very important. This in everyone, that is morality, and it was the only good deeds that accompanies every man to his grave. That was the question they asked in recent exam, like this time when it happened, so that you have to know, right? There are characters, every man, death, good deeds, knowledge. So to the point, everything is cleared. I hope you don't, all the confusion that you have is gone. And if you just move that thing to an Indian perspective, in Indian literature, what is miracle play? It will be a Krishna Leela, depicts miracles. So, and Ram Leela would be your what? Mystery plays. Kathakali will be your morality plays. Kathakali is also comes into miracle and narration of the saintly lives and miraculous events. Jataka tale is your morality. Panchatantra is also moral lesson about allegorical animal character. So, in Indian literature, you have miracle, mystery, and morality plays. So, in that way, you will understand more about it. Right now, we have come to the best part of the lecture, which is the question. Whatever the question they have asked in the past is there with you in your on your screen. Right. The first question they asked about the prosody. We know we talked about prosody is what the tone and the effect, all these things, stress, rhythm, pitch, all these things are there. So obviously D should be there. We already talked about it. So as you know, D is in the one option, so our answer is this. B is why. Study of poetry, of course. Prosody involves study of poetry because of the concerning to meter and other technique of versification. Very important. Why A is not there? It is not about narrative technique, right? So as you can see here, one statement is incorrect. Prosody does not concern with narrative technique in novel. Prosody is actually related to rhythm, stress, intonation, speech, and poetry. Statement 2 says, B says that in the study of poetry, prosody concerned with meter, yes, and other technique, definitely. Then statement C is incorrect because prosody in drama would relate more to the spoken aspects, not the theatrical devices, right? Statement D, because of course it is about spoken sounds and intonation, the pitch, how you say it, stress, or rhythm, right? Statement E is incorrect because in discourse, prosody is should not be there at all, right? Because it is mostly about intonation and stress. Then why would we include in discourse? Not right. So our answer is that. Identify the correct combination among the following. We already talked about it, right? Troche is what? Troche is stressed followed by unstressed, right? So that is our true. And then we have what? Ferric and sponde. Sponde, what we have the code for a sponde is that there is two, let me check, confirm. Now, two stressed in a meter, two long syllable. So basically none of the above is correct because as we know, sponde has two long, mother two stressed. Ferric, it consists two unstressed. You can just see in the explanation. Sponde two stressed. Remember that two stressed. Ferric is what? Too short or accent. मतलब too short. This is too long. Right. Spenser is what? An unstressed between two stressed one. So remember that. Coriambus is what? Coriambus is food consisting four lines, four syllable. The first and the last are long. Four syllable, first and the last are stressed, others are this. Trochaic, as we know, that is what? Stressed by unstressed. Iamb, as we know, is opposite of troche, is what? Unstressed by stress. Right? Anapest is what? Again, we already had a discussion that it has two short syllable and followed by one stressed. Dactyl opposite is again one stressed and two. This is opposite of anapest. Foot, as we know, is what? So that's how you can remember. Free verse without a rhyme, and tetrameter has four line. So it could be iambic tentameter, or it could be, trochaic tetrameter, or it could be anapest tetrameter. So all these things can be included in that, right? Pentameter, as we know, five poetic set of two, right? Iamb, if it is iamb, then will be like uh, unstressed followed by stress. How many times? Five times. Same thing, five time. Same thing, five time, right? So these things you should know. Injunct is what? Incomplete syntax at the end of the line. Suppose we are talking about something and there is not complete sentence, but it is followed in the next sentence. Not here, then it gets completed, right? It starts here, it should end here in the line, right? But when it doesn't, then it's the starting with the second. So that you have to know. Heroic couplet, we already had a question. I mean, we discussion. As we know, it has a rhyme in 10 syllable, right? It can be in iambic, pentameter, or it can in other form also. But the line should be rhyming like A and A, right? And as we know, in heroic is different. And if we talk about Alexandrine, in Spenserian, we had like 6, right? 12 lines in between pause. Okay, in which year She Walks in Beauty is published? Why it is important here? Because of the Because of this rhyming scheme, because of iambic pentameter, we have mentioned this thing. Like pentameter is what? Simple A, B, then we have A, B, and this rhymes penta B. Question 5 is again about simile, antithesis and assonance. So assonance is what we talked about it. In that you have to find willing to wound and yet afraid to strike. What is that? So you can see over your screen here, antithesis is what? Used in writing of a speech either as a proposition that contrasts with or reverse some kind of previously mentioned proposition. Example is same, willing to wound and yet afraid to. So this is our antithesis. Irony is what? When we talk about, as you can see here over your screen, what on the surface appears to be the case of what in the case to be expected. Everybody knows about the irony when we talk about something, but we mean something, right? In ironic way. So, like in the Jane Austen, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. So it's kind of irony here mentioned. Then we have assonance. We already talked about it. Assonance means what? Equals to vowel. Vowel. Right. So like quite like unlike a rhyme in which we already talked about it. So this is quite right. So you see the I in between sound is coming. So that is your assonance. So example in next is what? So for our in the question, still unravished bride of quietness, foster child of silence, and he also described the urn of historian. Anyway, next we have simile. Simile is what? When we are comparing with two, there should be word like or as. So when it is simile is what? It should be as or like in the sentence. If it is not, it will be a metaphor, right? So that you have to know, like, and ice mast high came floating by as green as emerald. Next is the elegy written in a country churchyard is written by who? Sorry, in what? In 10 syllabic. So country in quatrain. So that is again. What does the word assonance means? Assonance is what? Vowel. So that is our answer, right? Then who among the following believe that rhyme is not an integral part of poetry? Who said this, that the rhyme is not integral part of poetry? Again, I tell you, most of the question comes from the metrical form in this period, right? So it was Philip Sidney who said that rhyme is not an integral part of poetry, and also William Wordsworth, because he was he was using free verse, right? A common language spoken by a common people. So this too is correct, but it's entirely not true, because Philip Sidney not completely is against the rhyme, but he said it's not part of it, it's not important integral, but it's kind of a poem. He didn't kind of completely stress that it should not be used. He actually supported, that's all, right? So Horace and Philip Sidney both expressed a reservation about the use of rhyme. So it says B, not Wordsworth, right? In the answer B, Horace. So this we can, okay, Horace is the one who actually lived in the first century, as we know. He wrote Arc Poetica, and he said that mellifluous without artifice. About what? The rhyme. Without the forced use of rhyme. Philip Sidney, again in the defense of poesy, argued that poetry should prioritize the expression of moral and philosophy ideas over the use of formal devices like rhyme. Question 9. Who among the following is an early Tudor player? Again, I told you we had a code, right? What? GLCMSM. Remember? Why it's important? Because GLC is your car, LCM is your mathematical formula, right? And GLC is your car, right? And SM is your what? Social media. G represent cover, a Langland, Chaucer. Then we have Mallory, as we have Skelton, and we have more. So what is the answer here? Early Tudor. So as you know, Chaucer, Langland and Gower is the early, and first Tudor period starts from here, Skelton, social media. So in that code you will be able to answer that Skelton is our guy. I told you there was one question on Lindsay. Satire of the Three Estate is both by political religion. I think I have mentioned Henrician, but it's not there, so that's the wrong one. Here is the Lindsay is about three state, political and religious. One question was there. Right, which two of the following are non-fictional work by Peter Drucker? Why we have mentioned? Because he was the biographer of who? William Blake, Charles Dickens, T.S. Eliot, Charlie Chaplin, and our Thomas More. That's why we have mentioned. Emblem by Francis Quarries is what? Commentary on biblical illustration. Again, about the Bible, and also because we have here Thomas More commentary. This option is there, that's why we have mentioned. Right, so basically they are not going to ask directly about the particular work and author in that period. They are going to ask indirectly, and they might put in the option. Right, then question number, other possible question that you can get about the, so if you have this GLC code, you will be able to answer, right? GLC. So A, right? A, then A, and then this, right? So ACB. Where is ACB? You see in the first, that's your answer. Again, if you applied that this code GLCMSM, you will be able to answer. What? GLC again, we have Langland, then we have Chaucer, and then we have Skelton, remember? So our answer should be A, E something. Yes, so that is our answer. A, E, B, C, D. A, E, B, C, D. Easy to answer. A, E. This one is our correct one. Okay, question 15. Indicate the correct chronology of these things. Again, you have to pay G, L, C, M, S, M. So G is Gower should be the first. A should be the first. Where is A? Here. And GLC. We have Chaucer, so of course AD, right? And then we have SM, Mallory. Mallory is B, ADB, and then we have Skelton. You see, C, and at the end we have More. Sorry, More in E. So A, D, B, C, E. Easy to answer, right? So if you know the code, you'll be able to answer everything. Indicate the correct chronology of the publication of the following literary works. We had a code about that too. Remember? So even if you know that who came first, so as we know, Confessiamente should be the first one. Then it should be Langland. Then should be Chaucer. Then demoted the earth, and then utopia. So answer is easy to recognize even with the code, right? 17 indicate the correct chronology of the work. Again, the same thing that you can do. Follow the formula and then you will come to the answer. This question you can find in your uh, Google Classroom or in your app that you can go. And again, about the same order, and indicate the correct chronology of the Bible translation. We have the code, right? What Mr. White is cooking, right? That was our code. So white is what? YT. So then Coverdale. So ABCD, simple. It is ABCD. This is our answer, right? Same with, again, if you know the code, you will understand. You know that James Bible should be at the end between Coverdale and James. There are other Bibles also. So in that you can just put this the Great Bible in between. So in that way you can easily answer this one, right? Okay, so 22, another question that was actually came in your exam is which years Miles Coverdale translate in the old? As we know, 1535. So we know the dates, right, of all the James is what? 1611, right? Yes. So another was the question about the mythology is a term associated with the work of, because only interpret the Bible and the New Testament. So guys, that's all. Today we have discussed a lot of stuff and I hope it's clear to you, right? And next session will be on what? Our Shakespeare, the Elizabethan era. Remember to be there. It's gonna be interesting, and everything will study with the codes that you can easily remember the chronology order, the dates, and the works and important points and whatever the question they have asked in the past, right? So again, you should, if you're still there, you can just subscribe the channel, our video, subscribe it, then hit that bell icon also, join our Telegram channel. So when you join the Telegram channel, you'll get the notes and also the question, and most importantly, join our course. You won't regret it. Join is you only have to spend 5k only, and then you will be kind of fully equipped to answer every single thing in your exam. So thank you so much and have a good day. Bye bye.